Hi there, this is John Frenay, and welcome to an Encore presentation of our Legacy Business Spotlight. These are best done in person, and with the current state of emergency restrictions, that's just not possible. So we will be re-releasing our past episodes every Saturday at noon until this pandemic is in our collective rearview mirror. Until then, enjoy this Encore presentation of our Legacy Business Spotlight.
Some businesses succeed, some don't. Then there are those that seem to have been around forever. The true entrepreneurial success story. How did they do it? What was their vision? What makes a success? In this special episode for Eye on Annapolis, we speak with the true success stories, those business owners that have been around for decades, learn from their successes and failures. Now, here's host John Frenay.
It's blinding down here at Zachary's Jewelers, and all the bling out of here. Whenever I walk into the store, I love it. We're here with Steve Samaras, who is one of the owners, or the owner, or the brains, or the janitor, or you're something here at Zachary's Jewelers. And
chief cook and bottle washer, is that what they call it?
You know, hey, you do what it takes. That's one of the things. I mean, as we continue our Legacy Business series, you are one of the staples of Annapolis. You have been here for years and years. You are the anchor on Main Street.
Thank you.
Haven't always been that. You got sort of, I know you had a fire about 15 years ago that displaced you into your anchor spot, and it's been phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I personally love about Zachary's is that you're not just here hawking your jewelry, that you really are part of the community. When they light the Christmas tree every year, okay, there is the Chesapeake Ballet that is out here doing the Nutcracker. You are constantly doing different community events, and you're not just a store that's open in Annapolis to take people's business. And I think that really speaks well for your longevity and certainly your future. But where did you start? How long have you been as Zachary's Jewelers?
Oh, John, it's so hard to admit, but I personally have been on Main Street since 1979, managing a former jewelry store at the location where Starbucks is now. And then in 1992, I took over that business. The business I was managing prior had fallen on hard times, let's say. And so I looked at I call Errol my brother. He is the brother from a different mother for sure. He's born and raised in Belize and moved to the United States in the 70s with his wife, has raised a family. I looked at him. He and I were in the store with no jewelry, no anything, just the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and realized that we didn't know anything other than jewelry. So we decided, let's put our heads together and try and put this thing back on its feet. And we opened Zachary's in '92. Just to speak briefly about him, the commitment, and this is part of the fiber of our business, the nucleus, I should say, of our business. It's all been built on family, and Errol being the primary point that I'm trying to make. He worked at the new Zachary's from 1992 for a period of 10 months without collecting a paycheck. And he drove from Washington to Annapolis daily. Fortunately, his wife was career military, so there
was some income there.
Oh, yeah, a little bit of income there. But, I mean, that's the commitment that Errol has made to me personally and to our business, and that's 37 years ago. No, sorry, 27 years ago.
Are you native to Annapolis?
I'm born and raised in Annapolis.
Okay.
Right on Union Street, downtown.
Okay. And your name is Steven Samaras.
Yes.
And where is Zachary's coming from?
Interesting.
I don't know any Zachary in here.
Well, the former business that I managed, as I pointed out, was named Alexander's. And I had a professor at the University of Maryland, an advertising professor, that none of us could stand. The guy was just as arrogant as he could be. Once a week, it seemed, he would walk in and he'd say, for all of you young, budding entrepreneurs that think you can make it in business and think business is easy, the only advice I'm going to give you is when it comes to advertising, make sure you name your business and it begins with the letter A. Because back then, the Yellow Pages, that was the best form of advertising.
A Jewelers.
4A Reynolds, right? So I remember that gentleman and went completely opposite, went to the back of the alphabet. Z was there, and the first name I came up with was Zachary. And
so there's no great grandfather Zachary in the.
Well, actually, I called my cousin George and told him that I came up with a name and told him it was Zachary. He says, "That's great." And he was very excited. Couldn't understand why. Well, found out that his son Drew. His first name is Zachary and his middle name is Andrew. But they chose to call him Drew instead. So there's a connection there.
It's funny you talk about the Z. I know when I graduated high school, we had to march about a mile from the campus to a church where they had a service, and we were led by bagpipers, which I really can't stand. And being the last name Frenay, I was very happy that I was in the middle of the alphabet. I would have killed myself if I had been named like Anderson, but I would have given my left leg to have been called like Zimmerman. I mean, a mile of the same bagpipe going, it just drove me crazy. But so this is back in the 70s that you would,
started buying gold and silver back in 1979.
Wow.
And then that transformed into the owner of the company purchased a manufacturing jeweler out of Laurel, and brought that concept to downtown Annapolis. And it ran well for a period of time. And then we ventured into the continent of Africa to attempt a diamond mine. Yeah. And I spent 14 separate trips there over the course of 4 years. A lot of money expended, and that's why he fell on hard times. He just couldn't make a go of that.
Not sustainable.
No.
And okay, so Zachary's was where Starbucks is. Mm-hmm. You can't buy a diamond in Starbucks anymore.
I'm working on that.
But a little satellite.
They're selling everything else.
It's true. A little satellite store. I'll take a latte and latte and a diamond. But then you did have this fire. Let's talk about the history and I know you've got a store up in Severna Park as well.
Yes.
And was that before or after the fire?
It was after the fire.
Fire.
Fire was in 2005. It was November 25th. So literally,
Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. It was the day after Thanksgiving. Fortunately for the city in downtown Annapolis, it didn't happen on Thanksgiving Day. We were open when the fire began that evening, and it actually began in the property next to us and seeped in behind the walls. We were only about 6 inches away from that building. And unbeknownst to Errol, again, who was working that evening, it seeped in behind the wall and shot up to the third floor. And that's the floor that caught on fire and obviously moved downward. But that was actually I was out with family that night because my father had passed away 10 days earlier. And we were out for a little dinner for relatives that were in from out of town. And I received a phone call and obviously came downtown and saw what was going on. But
how did you get here? In the corner store of now, Zachary's is at 100 Main Street, which is, that's right, 100?
100 Main Street.
Right here at the foot of Main Street, you're underneath Buddy's Crabs and Ribs next to the Sperry store, I believe, is your immediate neighbor on Market Space, and Buddy's Crabs and Ribs would be on Main Street.
Yes.
Great wraparound windows.
We call it the corner of Hollywood and Vine.
Okay.
For Annapolis. It's interesting. That night, it was about 2 a.m., and by 2 a.m. On the 25th, or actually the 26th now, I had probably received 3 or 4 phone calls offering properties for us to locate temporarily. And
were they local people?
Yes.
And again, just point that out. This is a community working together for the community. This is, hey, this is a local small business. We need to make sure that we can do what we can do to help them out.
Well, interesting, John, and not to it's a perfect segue, but I made a commitment as we started the business in '92 to support every charity that came through the doors, local charity.
What about the John Frenay Send the Kids to College charity?
That's one of them. But whether it was a $25 gift certificate donation or supporting one of the larger local community organizations. I was the MC for the hospice
gala,
and it was. Let me tell you something, John. My wife is on the committee. Has been on the committee now for years. And Dr. Lou Berman, has been the host and auctioneer for a number of years for the gala. The hospice gala. This year, unfortunately, he was either out of town or I don't recall why he couldn't do it. So my wife decides to volunteer me, unbeknownst to myself, of course. And she comes to me with the idea, and I said, "There's no way." I said, first of all, I don't like to speak in front of crowds. And she said, you'd be great at it. I said, no, I'm not going to do this. Well, Chris Wilson with hospice came by, and she put the strong arm on me. And I agreed to do it. And I promised my wife that you're going to pay for this. I kept my promise because the week before the event, I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and start reciting part of my opening comments, and it went very well. I enjoyed it. We raised $650,000.
Yeah, it was just shy of $650. I remember it was a record for the hospice.
Yeah, it was a great evening. Great evening. So
hospice is a wonderful organization.
They really are. There are a few like it. We never said no, and never realized the impact that had on the community until 2005, November 2005. We had over 75 charities come to the store supporting us with either food. We rebuilt in 1 week. We were open on the corner in 1 week after the fire. Never missed a beat during the holidays and had our most successful holiday ever.
In a fire like that, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming there was insurance and stuff like that. But I mean, diamonds? I'm assuming don't burn. But I mean, do they get lost? Or they're in the. I'm assuming they're in safes and stuff like that too. Some of them.
We had, fortunately, the diamond inventory was secure in the vault, as was the customer's jewelry that we repaired. What was exposed to the caustic effect that smoke can have on metal was the balance of the jewelry in the showcases. So we had 1,100 items, I think, that were lost.
So you're watches and rings and
anything that was exposed, we got rid of.
Open in a week, though.
Open in a week. We sat across.
Were you opened here?
Open here.
You displaced a T-shirt shop, didn't you?
Harvey had it was an owner-occupied property at the time. Banana Republic had vacated the property, I think, about a year and a half earlier. And Harvey came to me that night and said, let's talk about the corner. And I remember vividly my response, Harvey, I can't afford the corner. And he said, you'd be surprised what you can afford. So that was our first communication. We spoke the next day. I spoke with the staff. We gathered in, and believe it or not, the back of the cigar shop, the Annapolis Cigar Shop. And we had sent out a week or so earlier an invitation to our holiday party, which was to happen on December 2nd. The Friday after the fire, and I said, listen, we have insurance. You guys are going to be taken care of. Don't worry about that. We can choose to take our time and open, or we can do something that many people believe is impossible and open before the holidays. And everyone agreed unanimously that we would attempt to do that. And we had the date of December 2nd. That was our holiday party. Let's see if we can do it by then.
But the invitations were printed, Steve.
They were printed. And we had 152 items, I recall, on the list, the checklist, to get done before we could open. And we accomplished all but 12. And that's where the community support came in, buying showcases. I mean, I never went in. I had friends that went out and bought those and brought them in.
Wow.
So it was Herculean,
Well, look where you are now. Now you came here. You expanded up into Severna Park as well, and that was you said after the fire, and that's located right on Ritchie Highway, and it's in the former Frank's Nursery, and that's probably really dating myself there. I believe it's Frank's Nursery thing, but Homestead Gardens is on one side, and you guys are on the other, but right on Ritchie Highway, just north of like the Bill Bateman's shopping center, the Old Navy, I think is still up there. And
Macy's Corner, I think, is the name of it.
Is that Macy's Corner?
Macy's Exxon, if I'm not mistaken.
And that was just a natural growth because of the business or were you looking to get into the...
Well, it's interesting. That was right at the peak of the recession, 2010. There's a group. It's our policing credit bureau, if you will, within our industry called the Jewelers Board of Trade. We opened a store in November 2010. I received a phone call, and typically you don't want to get a phone call from the JBT because it's something that has to do with your credit. And
I'm with the IRS. I'm here to help.
So I took the phone call, and I had this woman on the other line calling me and congratulating me. And I said, for what? And she said, didn't you just recently open a store in Severna Park, Maryland? And I said, yes, of course. And she said, do you know how many stores have opened this year? And it's November. I said, no, how many? And she said, you're the fourth. There were 4 jewelry stores that opened in 2010.
Nationwide.
And we happened to be one of them. So, we had an opportunity there. Don Riddle was a very dear friend of mine and posed the opportunity for us. We had, I feel like I'm boasting a little bit here, but well worth a comment. In 2008, 2007, 2 years after the fire, we decided to do a major renovation to the interior of our property here on Main Street. With that, in 2008, we were identified by our industry's #1 magazine publication to be the coolest store in America. We were featured on the cover. It was great.
Nice.
But that sort of bridged the time and the gap. I mean, we were very, very a popular business, not only locally but regionally because of that recognition. And our poorest year, I think, was about 9% off of our best year during the recession. So we had, again, that opportunity to open in Severna Park in 2010, and we jumped at it.
And now you're here. You've got 2 bustling stores, and a booming online business. I mean, I know you've moved on to the online world, which obviously you have to sort of migrate with the whims of the consumer.
It's it's interesting. Technology has had an effect on virtually every facet of retail that exists, and we recognize that the tide was coming or changing, and fortunately with where we positioned ourselves in the industry as a so-called guild type of store, upper end, people still want to feel and touch and know the people that they're buying from. So locally, we haven't experienced a downturn in business, much like other jewelers have. But still, the tide has changed, and that recognition has made us put into place certain things that may be unusual for the jewelry business.
Well, I will say that you mentioned about people want to build a relationship and work with people that they know. And I mean, I bought a couple things from you guys, and I'll admit it. I mean, I'm Googling, trying to figure out, okay, what do we get for Christmas? What is like, oh, sure. That's an idea. That's an idea. When you're looking at a major purchase, and major can be different for everybody. I mean, that could be a $250 something or other, or it could be a $250,000 something, which rumor has it that you had one of those $250,000 diamonds here over the Christmas season or something like that. But you want to be able to touch it, see it, feel it, and look at the person in the eye and realize that you've got that relationship, and you've got somebody that's on your side to do it. And that's one of the things that I do appreciate about Zachary is that, I turned around, maybe I did get my ideas online a little bit. And then I came here and I remember working with Evangeline. And I was like, hey, my girlfriend's this bracelet, and she's not real flashy and not this and that. And it was like, okay. And we worked through it, and it worked out really well. And that's the one thing that you're never going to get online is the realness that you've got here. And one thing I will say is that, you mentioned Errol is one of your longest serving employee, but your turnover here is not much. You're not hiring people that are in and out, and everybody is so knowledgeable about what's going on, which is just
that comes from, I guess, from Errol and myself. Over the years, I've hired my sister Evangeline to literally run what we have down here in Annapolis as the sales manager. I hired my sister Daphne to run the Severna Park store. We have Erica and Doug, Erica's been with us 20 years, Doug has been with us 15 years. Longevity is the name of the game here. I'm bringing in new blood. I have literally, claimed that she's my adopted Samoan daughter. Constance is moving back from the West Coast soon to become our COO. Hasn't been announced yet. This is the first time anyone's heard of that. But she is the future of this store. But first and foremost, she had to pass the family test, and she fit in there better than anyone else that I've known. She's just a remarkable person. When she's the bridge again. She bridges the gap of generations. She's
between the old folks like us,
and recognizing that having been here, you could do the math. 40 years. We're getting to the end of this particular facet, I guess, and not to pun, for a pun, but facet of the business in my life, and the transition to the next generation is coming through her. She is taking that technology that she understands and is an expert at, I might add, and translated that into how it overlays with what we've existed here as a relationship building business in the community through omnichannel. So, you need the multiple points of contact with your clients today to be successful and to maintain that success that we've talked about, the change of retail. Sure. We have a handheld presence. We have the website that's operational and doing wonderfully.
Your magazine is beautiful.
We have a magazine. This is our 5th year with a magazine, which, again, shows our roots in the community because it's about all of our members. It's not.
Now, I want to talk about the magazine real quickly.
Sure.
This is not, and I know a lot of jewelry store organizations, but organizations like a trade organization might give you a shell of a magazine. Okay, hey, here's the art card.
Right.
Here's the art card ad for the high school rings, and here's whatever it may be. That's not what you're doing.
No,
this is a fully produced Zachary's product.
My sister Evangeline has, with the guidance of our ad agency, has taken this project on herself, and it's become her pet, if you will, and she focuses on the content being personal. The models that are used in the magazine are all ours. I mean, they're employees of the store, staff members of the store, and it's taken on a life of its own. It's become a catalyst to show who we are, not sell jewelry. But because when you look at the magazine and you read these personal stories about people involved, you're immersed in what we are and what we mean to our clients and what they mean to us. So it becomes a vehicle with which to sell jewelry because
Sure.
it hits it personally.
Well, it does. It brings people into the stories
Sure.
of Zachary and brings Zachary's into their own personal story there. And you've morphed. I know. I noticed when I came in this morning, you have a new, we'll call it a selfie station or whatnot with a green screen.
Oh yeah,
that's set up again. And you're not attracting the 90-year-old women and men that were shopping in your store 30 years ago with that. And that just sort of shows what you've been doing as you're evolving.
We understand, and I don't know that's to be true, but when the selfie station went live, we believe we're the first jewelry store in the country to have one.
Which is cool. And basically what it is, it's just a fun thing. You can select a couple different backgrounds. You can wear some jewelry if you're trying on to see what that necklace or ring or watch or whatever it may be looks like, and have it texted right to you immediately.
Yes.
Yourself and
sent down on any form of social media that you wish to populate it with. So,
which is really kind of a cool and fun thing.
Oh, you should see the staff. I mean, we're over there every morning.
I think you might have some fun around Christmas and Halloween.
I
with
think
that.
so. I think so. That's
and again, I want to talk. I mean, I was recently at the Denim and Diamonds thing, and you couldn't take two steps without seeing Zachary's Jewelers as far as donating something to be auctioned off or to the silent auction. And you had mentioned that you had been there, and I love the story of way back when in the good old days when we had parking meters that actually took quarters.
Oh, yeah.
Where you would send people up in the season, send people up and look for expired meters and throw a quarter in and say, hey, we covered you for 20 minutes or what.
Back then it was 15 minutes.
Whatever it was. But again, that's, it's all about being part of the community. And Annapolis is not a very large town. Some people like to think it's this big metropolis, but it's really not. It's a very small town. It's a very familial town. We are all together living here trying to, be one community, and you've really done a lot to keep the glue to a degree to keep it going.
Yeah, yes, I appreciate the compliment because that certainly is what it is. And I think at the heart of it all, it's about doing, good deeds is good business. You mentioned the walking up and down the street that we would do Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays during the summer months. I can't tell you how many new clients we have because of that. We put the little note that appeared to be a parking ticket on the windshield when they came by to see that it was a thank you for shopping downtown from us. There's a gentleman from Washington, D.C. that has a boat down here that is probably definitely one of my top 10 clients now. This guy spends tens of thousands of dollars a year with us.
And it costs you a quarter to acquire them.
Cost me a quarter.
Not a bad ROI.
No, that was worth it all.
That is for sure. What's the future look like for you guys? 3 more stores?
Very possibly. We have.
Okay, I was just joking, but
No. We're looking. Let's say that.
Okay.
Maybe a slightly different model. It will be a slightly different model. It's
in the general area, or are you looking at
general area of the region, not downtown Annapolis, certainly not,
right.
But in the surrounding communities.
So, I mean, in the Maryland area.
Yes.
I mean, you're not looking at Minot, North Dakota, or anything like that.
No. You'll hear something about it hopefully shortly.
Okay, this is called being coy. This is what this. I see what's happening here. Well, Steve Samaras, and this is a family-owned business. This is just a wonderful place to be. If you're down here in Annapolis, I do encourage you to stop in, just check out everything that they do have. More importantly, check out the people that they do have here that are working for them, because I think it is the biggest asset that you have.
Question.
The most expensive asset is probably what you keep in the safe, but that's that's a totally different ball of wax. But if you're ever down in Annapolis on any one of the special days, turn around, watch the lighting of the Christmas tree and watch the Nutcracker performed out front. I'm assuming that you're going to be continuing to do that as for the foreseeable future.
Yes, we will.
You look at the windows. The windows are always a cool display. I mean, you've got up in the New York windows, the Macy's windows were always a big thing to look at, or Saks Fifth Avenue. It's sort of our own little answer here. You say you've got Hollywood and Vine down here on the corner, and it's a little bit of a New York as well, because the displays do change. You are one of the jewelers in town that has, been around for quite a long time, and you've stood the test of time, if you will, and I think it sort of speaks to what you do. Personally, you've been involved with the Downtown Annapolis Partnership, the Annapolis Business Association that was before. Probably you were on the board of it was probably called the Convention and Visitors Bureau at one point,
yes.
and now Visit
Chamber
Annapolis.
Of Commerce, sure.
And that's invaluable to what you've done to build the business. Would you ever do it again differently? Would you?
Oh boy, that's.
I mean, there's obviously things you would have done differently,
Sure.
but do you appreciate being?
John, just to put it this way, I love what I do. That's why they'll carry me out of the store.
Sales will be a little bit off that day, though.
A little bit off. I mean, the fact that the reason I want this to continue, and I want it to continue downtown. I want to grow this business, and at my age now, growth is without the assistance of youth is not sustainable. So that's why I've looked to others to help continue the legacy, if you will, that we've created down here, and that's important to me.
I think it's a really smart move.
Well,
who knows what the future is going to hold?
Who knows?
But check it out, Zachary's down at the foot of Main Street at Hollywood and Vine, but it's otherwise known as Main and Market Space in Annapolis. You can find them online at zacharysjewelers.com, and ZACHARYS Jewelers. You can figure out how to spell that, .com. That'll give you a taste of what's in the store, but really to experience the experience of working with folks like Errol or Evangeline or Steve or any of the other great people you got working here. Do come in here. Shally or Daphne up in Severna Park. Definitely give them a visit. And, thank you for being such a piece of the community for so long.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Annapolis.
Thanks for listening to this special podcast for Ion Annapolis. Please be sure to visit ionannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinions. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Ion Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you your local news direct to your phone or tablet every Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Subscribe on iTunes or Google Play.